Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. Rudy's head throbbed as consciousness seeped back into his body. He groaned, his eyelids fluttering open to a world of blinding white. For a moment, he thought he might be dead, floating in some ethereal afterlife. But the cold, hard surface beneath him quickly dispelled that notion. "Oh, stars!" a melodious voice muttered nearby. "How hard! And I thought earthlings were soft." Rudy's eyes snapped fully open at the unfamiliar voice. He turned his head, ignoring the protest of stiff muscles, and found himself face to face with the most striking creature he'd ever seen. She, at least Rudy assumed it was a she, had skin the color of a cloudless summer sky, smooth and iridescent. Her eyes, large and almond-shaped, were a deep, mesmerizing purple. A cascade of silvery hair framed her delicate features. "What the hell?" Rudy croaked, his voice hoarse. The alien blinked at him, her expression a mix of curiosity and, was that disappointment? "You're awake," she stated, her voice carrying an otherworldly lilt. "I was beginning to think your species was prone to extended periods of unconsciousness." Rudy pushed himself up, wincing at the soreness in his limbs. "Where am I? Who are you? What's going on?" The alien cocked her head, reminding Rudy of an inquisitive bird. "I was rather hoping you could answer those questions, Earthling. I find myself equally disoriented." Rudy took in their surroundings. They were in a large circular room with smooth, pearlescent walls that seemed to glow with a soft, inner light. There were no visible doors or windows, just an unbroken expanse of alien architecture. "My name is Luma," the alien offered, drawing Rudy's attention back to her. "And you are?" "Rudy," he replied automatically, still trying to process the situation. "Rudy Hawthorne." Luma nodded as if committing the name to memory. "Well, Rudy Hawthorne, it seems we find ourselves in quite the predicament." Rudy couldn't help but laugh, a short, sharp bark of disbelief. "That's putting it mildly. Last thing I remember, I was falling asleep in my apartment in Chicago. Now I'm wherever this is with—" He gestured vaguely at Luma, unsure how to describe her without causing offense. "With a being clearly superior to your species in every way," Luma suggested, a hint of amusement in her voice. Rudy bristled at her tone. "Look, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm not about to start a debate on interspecies superiority with some blue-skinned alien I just met." Luma's eyes narrowed. "I'll have you know that my pigmentation is a highly evolved adaptation to my homeworld's twin suns. It's not just blue, it's—" She was cut off as the room suddenly lurched, sending both of them sprawling. Rudy found himself pressed against Luma, her skin surprisingly warm against his. "Get off me, you oaf!" Luma hissed, pushing at his chest. Rudy scrambled back, his face burning. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." The room shuddered again and a low, ominous hum filled the air. Rudy and Luma exchanged a worried glance, their bickering forgotten in the face of this new threat. "We need to find a way out of here," Rudy said, scanning the walls for any hint of an exit. Luma nodded, her earlier haughtiness replaced by determination. "Agreed, though I must warn you, Earthling, if this is some elaborate trap set by your kind." "My kind?" Rudy interrupted, indignant. "I'm just as lost as you are. For all I know, this could be some weird alien abduction scenario." Luma scoffed. "Please, if my people wanted to abduct you, you wouldn't even realize it was happening. We're far too advanced for such crude methods." Rudy bit back a retort, focusing instead on examining the walls. He ran his hands over the smooth surface, searching for any irregularities. "There's got to be a way out, maybe a hidden panel or—" His words were cut short as his hand sank into the wall, disappearing up to his wrist. Rudy yelped in surprise, trying to pull back, but his arm seemed stuck. "Luma, a little help here," he called, panic rising in his voice. The alien was at his side in an instant, her cool fingers wrapping around his forearm. "Stop struggling," she commanded. "You'll only make it worse." Rudy forced himself to relax, taking deep breaths to calm his racing heart. Luma's touch was surprisingly gentle as she probed the area where his arm met the wall. "Fascinating," she murmured. "It appears to be some sort of phase shift technology. The wall is simultaneously solid and permeable." "That's great and all," Rudy said through gritted teeth. "But how do we get my arm out?" Luma's brow furrowed in concentration. "I believe if we—" She trailed off, then suddenly yanked Rudy's arm hard. There was a moment of resistance, then Rudy stumbled backward, nearly knocking Luma over in the process. He flexed his fingers, relieved to find everything still worked. "A little warning next time," he grumbled. Luma shrugged, a surprisingly human gesture. "I find that anticipation often leads to increased tension, which would have made extraction more difficult." Before Rudy could respond, the section of wall where his arm had been trapped shimmered and disappeared, revealing a dark corridor beyond. "Well," Luma said, a hint of excitement in her voice, "shall we explore?" Rudy hesitated, eyeing the ominous passageway. "I don't know. It could be dangerous." Luma raised an eyebrow, or what passed for an eyebrow on her alien features. "More dangerous than remaining trapped in a room that's clearly malfunctioning. Come now, Earthling. Where's your sense of adventure?" With a resigned sigh, Rudy nodded. "Fine. But if we get eaten by some space monster, I'm blaming you." They stepped into the corridor, which lit up as they entered, bathing them in a soft blue glow. The walls here were different, covered in intricate swirling patterns that seemed to move if you looked at them too long. As they walked, Rudy couldn't help but sneak glances at Luma. Despite the bizarreness of their situation, he found himself fascinated by her alien beauty. "You're staring," Luma said without looking at him. Rudy quickly averted his gaze. "Sorry, I've never seen anyone like you before." Luma's lips quirked in what might have been a smile. "I should hope not. My species hasn't made official contact with Earth yet." "Yet?" Rudy echoed. "So you were planning to?" Luma shrugged. "Eventually, once your civilization advanced enough to not immediately try to dissect us or worship us as gods." Rudy laughed. "Fair enough. Though I've got to say, if all your people look like you, the worship thing might still be a problem." As soon as the words left his mouth, Rudy wanted to kick himself. Was he really flirting with an alien in the middle of whatever this was? To his surprise, Luma's cheeks darkened to a deeper shade of blue. Was she blushing? Thank you," she said, sounding flustered for the first time since they'd met. "Though I assure you, I'm quite average by my people's standards." "Well, your people must be a gorgeous bunch then," Rudy said, figuring he might as well commit to the flirtation. Luma opened her mouth to respond but was cut off as the corridor suddenly tilted, sending them both tumbling. Rudy found himself sliding down the now sloped floor, Luma right behind him. They crashed into a dead end, Luma landing on top of Rudy with an oof of surprise. For a moment they lay there, tangled together, faces inches apart. "We've got to stop meeting like this," Rudy quipped, trying to ignore the way his heart was racing. And not just from the fall. Luma's eyes widened and she quickly scrambled off him. Apologies. I didn't mean to." "It's fine," Rudy assured her, sitting up and rubbing his now sore back. "Though I'm starting to think this place has it out for us." As if in response to his words, a section of the wall slid open, revealing what looked like some kind of control room. Oh, stars, Luma breathed, her eyes lighting up with excitement. Look at this technology. She rushed into the room, her earlier embarrassment forgotten as she examined the array of holographic displays and strange pulsing crystals. Rudy followed more cautiously, keeping an eye out for any more surprises. Can you make sense of any of this? Luma's fingers danced over the controls, her brow furrowed in concentration. Some of it, yes. It's far more advanced than anything my people have developed, but the basic principles are similar. So, can you figure out where we are, or how to get out of here? Rudy asked, hopefully. Luma bit her lower lip, a gesture so human it momentarily threw Rudy off balance. I'm not sure. This system is incredibly complex, and without knowing more about our situation. She trailed off as one of the displays suddenly flared to life, projecting a three-dimensional image of what looked like a massive space station. By the twin moons, Luma gasped. We're on a ship. Rudy stared at the hologram, trying to wrap his mind around the scale of the structure. That's big. Luma shot him an exasperated look. Your talent for understatement is truly remarkable, Earthling. Before Rudy could retort, the ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across the control panels and an alarm began to wail. What's happening? Rudy shouted over the noise. Luma's hands flew over the controls, her expression growing more panicked by the second. I'm not sure, but whatever it is, it's not good. The ship's systems are destabilizing rapidly. Can you stop it? I'm trying, Luma snapped, frustration evident in her voice. But I don't understand half of these systems, and the ones I do recognize are behaving erratically. Rudy watched helplessly as Luma worked, feeling useless and out of his depth. He was an accountant from Chicago, for crying out loud. What did he know about alien spaceships? Suddenly, the alarms cut off, plunging the room into eerie silence. The holographic displays flickered and died, leaving only the soft glow of the walls for illumination. That can't be good, Rudy said, breaking the tense silence. Luma turned to him, her purple eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. Rudy, I think I know what's happening. This ship, it's not just a ship. It's... Her words were cut off as the floor beneath them vanished, sending them plummeting into darkness. Rudy's stomach lurched as he fell, his hand instinctively reaching out and finding Luma's. As they fell, a strange sensation washed over Rudy, like his entire body was dissolving and reforming at the same time. The last thing he heard before consciousness slipped away was Luma's voice, tinged with wonder and fear. Oh, stars, how hard, and I thought Earthlings were soft. Then everything went black, leaving Rudy with more questions than answers, and the lingering warmth of Luma's hand in his. Consciousness returned to Rudy like a slow tide, bringing with it a cacophony of sensations. His body ached, as if he'd run a marathon and then been hit by a truck for good measure. He groaned, eyes still closed, trying to piece together what had happened. Oh, good. You're not dead. Luma's voice, tinged with equal parts relief and sarcasm, prompted Rudy to finally open his eyes. He found himself lying on a soft, moss-like surface in what appeared to be a lush, alien garden. Vibrant plants with impossible geometry surrounded them, their leaves shimmering with an inner light. Where are we now? Rudy croaked, his throat dry. Luma, who was sitting cross-legged beside him, shrugged. Another part of the ship, I assume, though this environment is unexpected. Rudy pushed himself up to a sitting position, wincing at the protest from his muscles. How long was I out? Approximately 4 Earth hours, Luma replied, her purple eyes studying him with curiosity. I was beginning to worry your fragile human physiology couldn't handle the transition. Fragile, Rudy scoffed, though the effect was somewhat ruined by a sudden coughing fit. I'll have you know I once ate a whole ghost pepper on a dare. Luma blinked, clearly not understanding the reference. Is that some sort of earth-mating ritual? Rudy laughed, then immediately regretted it as pain shot through his ribs. No, just stupid human bravado. Speaking of which, how are you so fine after all that? Luma's posture straightened, a hint of pride in her voice. My species evolved on a planet with frequent geological upheavals. We're quite adaptable to sudden changes in environment. Lucky you, Rudy muttered, finally managing to get to his feet. He swayed slightly and Luma was instantly at his side, her cool hand steadying him. Careful, she warned. Your equilibrium may still be compromised. Rudy was acutely aware of her touch, her skin smooth and slightly cooler than a human's. He cleared his throat, trying to ignore the flutter in his stomach. Thanks. So, any idea what this place is? Luma released him and gestured to their surroundings. It appears to be some sort of bioengineered ecosystem. I've never seen plants quite like these before. As if on cue, a nearby flower unfurled its petals, revealing a pulsing, crystal-like core. Rudy instinctively stepped back, bumping into Luma in the process. Sorry, he mumbled, heat rising to his cheeks at their proximity. Luma's lips quirked in what might have been amusement. No need to apologize, Earthling, though I'm beginning to think your species has an unusual propensity for physical contact. Hey, you're the one who keeps catching me when I fall, Rudy retorted, a grin tugging at his lips despite the situation. Luma's skin darkened slightly, a reaction Rudy was beginning to recognize as a blush. Yes, well, someone has to ensure your continued survival, for scientific purposes, of course. Of course, Rudy agreed, his grin widening. Can't let your prize specimen die before you've had a chance to properly study him, right? Luma's eyes narrowed, but there was a hint of playfulness in her expression. Don't flatter yourself, human. You're hardly my prize specimen. More like an interesting anomaly. Their banter was interrupted by a low rumble that shook the ground beneath their feet. The plants around them trembled, some retracting into the ground while others spread their leaves wider. We should move, Luma said, her tone suddenly serious. This environment seems unstable. Rudy nodded, following her lead as they made their way through the alien garden. As they walked, he couldn't help but marvel at the strange beauty of their surroundings. Plants that looked like they were made of living crystal grew alongside others that seemed to defy gravity, their tendrils twisting in impossible patterns. It's beautiful, he murmured, reaching out to touch a leaf that shimmered like an oil slick. Luma grabbed his wrist, stopping him. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Some of these plants might be carnivorous or toxic. Rudy quickly withdrew his hand. Right. Sorry, I guess I'm not used to potentially deadly flora. Luma's expression softened slightly. It's understandable. Your world is significantly less diverse in its dangers. Hey, we've got plenty of dangerous stuff on Earth, Rudy protested. Maybe not sparkly death plants, but we've got, bears and poison ivy. Luma's laughter was like tinkling crystals, a sound that made Rudy's heart skip a beat. Oh, Rudy, your attempts to defend your planet's deadliness are adorable. Adorable, huh? Rudy grinned, feeling a surge of confidence. I'll take that as a compliment. Their eyes met, and for a moment the air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken tension. Luma opened her mouth as if to say something, then quickly looked away. We should keep moving, she said, her voice slightly strained. There has to be a way out of this garden. As they continued their exploration, Rudy found himself stealing glances at Luma, the way she moved with fluid grace, her silvery hair catching the light from the bioluminescent plants. It was mesmerizing. So, he said, trying to break the awkward silence that had fallen between them. "Tell me about your world. What's it like?" Luma's eyes lit up at the question. "Oh, it's beautiful. Twin suns that paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. Oceans that glow with bioluminescent algae at night. Cities built into the sides of mountains with architecture that flows like water." As she spoke, Rudy found himself captivated not just by the description, but by the passion in her voice. It was the first time he'd seen her truly animated about something other than their predicament. "It sounds amazing," he said softly when she finished. "I'd love to see it someday." Luma's expression turned wistful. "Perhaps you will, if we ever get out of here. What about your world? What's Earth like beyond what I've learned from our long-range observations?" Rudy chuckled. "Well, it's probably a lot messier than what you've seen from space. We've got our problems, pollution, war, reality TV. But there's a lot of beauty, too. Mountains that touch the sky, forests that seem to go on forever, cities that never sleep." As he spoke, Rudy realized how much he missed home. The familiar streets of Chicago, the smell of deep dish pizza, the sound of Lake Michigan's waves. It all seemed so far away now. Luma must have sensed his melancholy because she placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Your world sounds fascinating, Rudy. I hope I get to experience it firsthand someday." Their eyes met again, and this time neither looked away. Rudy felt his heart racing, acutely aware of Luma's touch and the way her eyes seemed to shimmer in the soft light of the alien flora. The moment was shattered by another violent tremor. This time, the ground beneath them began to crack, revealing a network of glowing veins running through the earth. "Run!" Luma shouted, grabbing Rudy's hand and pulling him along. They sprinted through the garden, dodging falling debris and writhing plants. Rudy's lungs burned, but he pushed himself to keep up with Luma's surprisingly swift pace. Just as it seemed they might outrun the destruction, the ground gave way entirely. Rudy felt himself falling, Luma's hand still clutched tightly in his. They tumbled through darkness, surrounded by the screeching of metal and the hiss of escaping gases. Then, as suddenly as it began, the fall stopped. Rudy found himself submerged in a thick, gelatinous substance that cushioned their impact. He flailed, trying to orient himself, until he felt Luma's hand on his shoulder. "Calm down," her voice came, muffled by the strange liquid. "It's some sort of shock-absorbing gel. Just relax and let it support you." Rudy forced himself to stop struggling, and found that the gel indeed held him comfortably. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he saw that they were in a large, spherical chamber filled with the translucent substance. "Oh, stars," Luma muttered, her voice tinged with awe. "This ship, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's as if it's adapting to us." Rudy turned to look at her, struck by how ethereal she looked suspended in the gel, her hair floating around her like a silver halo. "What do you mean, adapting?" Luma's brow furrowed in concentration. "The environments we've encountered, the way the ship seems to respond to our needs, it's almost as if it's studying us, learning from our interactions." "That's unsettling," Rudy said, trying to suppress a shudder. "So, what? We're lab rats in some giant alien experiment?" "I'm not sure," Luma admitted. "But whatever's happening, I don't think it's malevolent. If anything, it feels curious." As if in response to her words, the gel around them began to glow softly, pulsing with a gentle rhythm that reminded Rudy of a heartbeat. "Okay, that's just creepy," he muttered. Luma, however, looked fascinated. She reached out, running her fingers through the glowing substance. "It's beautiful," she whispered, "like liquid starlight." Rudy couldn't help but smile at her wonderment. Despite the bizarreness of their situation, Luma's curiosity and enthusiasm were infectious. "You know," he said, surprising himself with his boldness. "You're pretty beautiful yourself." Luma's eyes widened, her skin flushing that deeper shade of blue. Thank you, Rudy. Though I must say, your human standards of beauty are quite strange." Rudy laughed, feeling lighter despite their predicament. "Hey, who says they're just human standards? Maybe I've developed a taste for blue skin and purple eyes." Luma's lips curved into a smile that made Rudy's heart skip a beat. "Well, in that case, I suppose I should admit that I find your pink complexion and rounded ears oddly charming." Their laughter echoed through the chamber, a moment of joy amidst the uncertainty. As their mirth faded, Rudy found himself drifting closer to Luma, drawn by an invisible force he couldn't quite explain. "Luma," he said softly, "I know this is crazy, and we barely know each other, but His words were cut off as the gel suddenly began to drain from the chamber. They found themselves being gently deposited on a smooth metallic floor as the last of the substance disappeared. "Oh, stars!" Luma gasped, her eyes wide as she took in their new surroundings. "Rudy, look!" Rudy followed her gaze and felt his jaw drop. They were in what appeared to be a massive control room, filled with holographic displays and pulsing crystals that put their previous discovery to shame. "I think," Luma said, her voice filled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, "we've just found the heart of the ship." As they stood there, surrounded by alien technology beyond their wildest dreams, Rudy realized that whatever happened next would change everything. Their relationship, their understanding of the universe, perhaps even the fate of their respective species. It all hung in the balance. And yet, as he looked at Luma, her eyes shining with the reflected light of 1,000 stars, Rudy knew one thing for certain. He wouldn't want to face this cosmic mystery with anyone else by his side. Rudy's heart pounded as he took in the breathtaking expanse of the control room. Holographic displays flickered and pulsed, casting an ethereal glow across Luma's azure skin. He couldn't shake the feeling that they'd stumbled into the lair of some cosmic deity. "This is incredible," he breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. Luma nodded, her purple eyes wide with wonder. "The technology here, it's beyond anything my people have ever dreamed of." As they ventured further into the room, Rudy's hand brushed against Luma's. The brief contact sent a jolt through him, and he found himself fighting the urge to intertwine his fingers with hers. He cleared his throat, trying to focus on the task at hand. "So, any idea how we can use this to get home?" he asked, gesturing to the dizzying array of controls. Luma's brow furrowed in concentration as she approached one of the larger displays. "I'm not sure, but if I can just—" Her words were cut off by a sudden ear-piercing alarm. Red lights began flashing throughout the room, and the floor beneath them shuddered violently. "What did you do?" Rudy shouted over the cacophony. "Nothing," Luma yelled back, her hands flying over the controls. "The system just went haywire." Rudy stumbled as another tremor rocked the station. He grabbed onto a nearby console to steady himself, accidentally activating a holographic projection in the process. His jaw dropped as a three-dimensional map of the ship materialized before them, sections flashing red in rapid succession. "Oh, stars!" Luma gasped, her voice tight with fear. "Rudy, the entire structure is destabilizing. We have minutes, maybe less, before total collapse." Panic clawed at Rudy's chest, threatening to overwhelm him. He forced it down, trying to think rationally. There has to be a way out. Escape pods, teleporters, something. They scanned the room frantically, searching for anything that might offer salvation. As Rudy's gaze swept across the chaotic array of technology, something caught his eye, a small, unassuming terminal tucked away in a corner, its screen dark. "Luma, over here!" he called, already racing towards it. She was at his side in an instant, her fingers dancing across the terminal surface. "It's locked down," she muttered, frustration evident in her voice. "I need time to bypass the security protocols." "Time isn't exactly on our side right now," Rudy said, glancing nervously at the failing systems around them. Luma shot him a look that was equal parts exasperation and determination. "Then make yourself useful and keep an eye on those structural integrity readings while I work." Despite the dire situation, Rudy couldn't help but grin. "Yes, ma'am." As Luma worked to unlock the terminal, Rudy kept a wary eye on the holographic display. The red warning indicators were spreading alarmingly fast, like a virulent infection consuming the ship. Luma? Not to rush you, but we're running out of green spots here," he said, trying to keep the tremor out of his voice. "Almost there." Luma's brow was furrowed in concentration, a bead of sweat or whatever passed for sweat on her species trickling down her temple. Just as Rudy was certain they were out of time, the terminal's screen flickered to life. Relief flooded through him, only to be instantly replaced by confusion as he saw what was displayed. "System simulation status, critical failure, shutdown imminent," the screen read in stark, glowing letters. "Simulation!" Rudy and Luma exclaimed in unison. Before they could process this revelation, a new message appeared. "Greetings, test subjects R7 and L13. We regret to inform you that due to an unexpected anomaly, the cross-species compatibility simulation must be terminated immediately. Please stand by for extraction." Rudy's mind reeled. Test subjects? Compatibility simulation? What the hell is going on? Luma's face had drained of color, her usual cerulean hue fading to a pale blue. "It can't be. All of this. It wasn't real?" As if in response to their distress, the terminal's display changed again, this time showing a video feed. An alien face appeared, one that looked similar to Luma's species, but with subtle differences. "Greetings," the alien said, its voice calm despite the chaos surrounding Rudy and Luma. "I am lead researcher Zix of the Galactic Council's Interspecies Relations Division. I apologize for the abrupt nature of this revelation, but time is of the essence." "What is this?" Luma demanded, her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "What have you done to us?" Zix's expression softened slightly. "You and your human companion have been part of a highly advanced simulation designed to study the potential for meaningful connections between different species. The intensity of your bond has caused an unforeseen reaction in the system, leading to its imminent collapse." Rudy's head spun as he tried to process this information. "So, none of this was real? The ship, the danger, us?" "The physical environments were simulated, yes," Zix explained. "But your minds, your emotions, your interactions, those were entirely real. In fact, it's the strength of your connection that has overwhelmed our systems." Luma's hand found Rudy's, gripping it tightly. The contact grounded him, reminding him that whatever else might be a lie, this, the way he felt about her, was undeniably real. "What happens now?" Luma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Zix's expression turned grave. "We must extract you from the simulation immediately. However, we face an ethical dilemma. Given the unprecedented nature of your bond, we are offering you a choice." The alien paused, allowing the weight of the moment to settle before continuing. "Option 1. We can return you to your normal lives on your respective homeworlds, with all memories of this experience erased. You would resume your lives as if none of this had ever happened." Rudy felt Luma's hand tighten around his at the thought. "Option 2, Zix continued. "We can preserve your memories and the feelings you've developed for each other. However, this means facing the very real challenges of an interspecies relationship in the physical world, vast distances, biological incompatibilities, cultural differences. The implications of both choices hit Rudy like a punch to the gut. Forget everything. The wonder, the fear, the exhilaration of discovery. Luma? The very thought made his chest ache. But to remember, to try to build something real from this elaborate illusion, could they do it? He turned to Luma, searching her alien features for any clue to her thoughts. Her purple eyes met his, filled with a storm of emotions he couldn't begin to untangle. "Luma, he began, but she pressed a finger to his lips, silencing him. "Not yet," she said softly. "We need to think this through." Zix's voice cut through their moment of intimacy. "I'm sorry, but we don't have much time. The simulation is collapsing around you. You must decide now." As if to emphasize the point, a violent tremor shook the room. Holographic displays flickered and died, plunging sections of the control room into darkness. Rudy's mind raced. How could they possibly make a decision like this in mere moments? To forget everything. It would be easier, safer. They'd go back to their normal lives, unburdened by the knowledge of what might have been. But the thought of losing Luma, of never knowing the depth of what they'd shared, it was unbearable. "I can't forget you," he blurted out, surprising himself with the intensity of his words. "Luma, I know this is crazy. We've only known each other for what? A day. But it feels like a lifetime. The thought of going back to my boring life in Chicago, never knowing you existed. I can't do it." Luma's eyes glistened with what Rudy realized were tears, or the alien equivalent. "Oh, Rudy," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You impossible, wonderful human. Do you have any idea what you're saying? The challenges we'd face." "I don't care," Rudy insisted, pulling her closer. "Whatever obstacles are out there, we'll face them together. Unless you don't want to?" For a heart-stopping moment, Luma was silent. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face, the most beautiful thing Rudy had ever seen. "You're right. It is crazy," she said. "But I've never felt more alive than I have with you. Even if it was all in a simulation, what we feel is real. I choose to remember. I choose you, Rudy Hawthorne." Relief and joy surged through Rudy. He pulled Luma into a fierce embrace, not caring about the alarms blaring around them or the disapproving look on Zix's face. "We've made our decision," Rudy announced, turning back to the terminal. "We want to remember." Zix nodded solemnly. "Very well. I must warn you, the path ahead will not be easy, but your courage is admirable. Prepare yourselves for extraction." As the world began to dissolve around them, Rudy held Luma tightly. "See you on the other side," he whispered. "I'll be waiting," she replied, her voice fading as reality slipped away. Rudy's eyes snapped open, his heart racing. He found himself lying in a sterile white room, various monitoring devices attached to his body. As his vision cleared, he saw a group of human scientists huddled around him, talking excitedly. "Mr. Hawthorne," one of them said, noticing he was awake. "How do you feel?" Rudy sat up slowly, his mind whirling with memories of the simulation. I remember everything. Where's Luma? Is she okay?" The scientists exchanged glances. "Miss Luma is fine," another researcher assured him. "She's currently in a similar facility on her home world, about 37 light-years from Earth." The enormity of the distance hit Rudy like a physical blow. 37 light-years. It might as well have been an eternity. How can we? He struggled to form the question. A kind-looking woman stepped forward. "Mr. Hawthorne, I'm Dr. Elena Chen, Earth's liaison to the Galactic Council. I know this is a lot to process, but I want you to know that we're here to help. The Council has agreed to provide us with advanced communication technology to facilitate your relationship with Luma, should you both choose to pursue it." Rudy's head spun with the implications. Advanced alien tech, interstellar communication, the fact that humanity was apparently part of some galactic council. It was overwhelming. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Dr. Chen smiled encouragingly. "That's up to you and Luma. We'll arrange a video call as soon as you're both ready. From there, well, you'll be the first of your kind. An interspecies couple separated by light years but united by a bond forged in the stars." As the reality of his situation settled in, Rudy felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges he could scarcely imagine. But the memory of Luma's smile, the feel of her hand in his, gave him strength. Whatever the universe had in store for them, they would face it together. Their love, born in a simulation but blazing with very real passion, would light the way across the vast emptiness of space. Rudy lay back, closed his eyes, and allowed himself a small smile. Somewhere, 37 light-years away, he knew Luma was doing the same. Their greatest adventure was just beginning. 12 years later, the soft chime of the quantum communicator pulled Rudy from his work. He glanced at the clock, 3:47 a.m. Earth time, and smiled. Some things never changed, no matter how many light-years separated them. "Luma," he said warmly, as her holographic form shimmered into existence. Even after all these years, the sight of her still made his heart skip a beat. "Hello, my favorite pink-skinned mammal," Luma teased, her purple eyes twinkling with mischief. "Did I wake you?" Rudy chuckled, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "You know me, burning the midnight oil. How's the conference going?" Luma's image flickered slightly as she gestured expansively. "Oh, you know how these galactic council meetings are. Lots of pontificating about interspecies relations, not enough action. They could learn a thing or two from us, don't you think?" "I'd say we're experts in interspecies relations by now," Rudy agreed with a wink. A burst of laughter from off-screen caught their attention. Luma turned, her expression softening. "Zara, sweetheart, what are you doing up? It's late." A small blue face peeked into view, purple eyes wide with excitement. "I heard Dad. Can I say hi? Please?" Rudy's heart swelled at the sight of his daughter. At 8 years old, Zara was a perfect blend of her parents. Luma's cerulean skin and his human features with a mop of silvery hair that seemed to defy gravity. "Hey there, Starshine," Rudy said softly. "Shouldn't you be dreaming of quantum physics by now?" Zara rolled her eyes in a gesture that was pure preteen attitude. "Dad, I told you, I'm more into xenobiology these days. When are you coming home? Lex is driving me crazy." As if summoned, a boy's voice called out, "Am not. You're the one who keeps messing with my holo games." Luma sighed, a sound that somehow conveyed both exasperation and deep affection. "Alexander Hawthorne, if you're not in bed in the next 5 minutes, I'm confiscating your quantum entanglement simulator for a week." There was a muffled groan, followed by the sound of retreating footsteps. Rudy couldn't help but laugh. "Sounds like you've got your hands full, honey." "Nothing I can't handle," Luma said with a smirk, "though I wouldn't say no to some hands-on assistance when you get back." Even after 12 years of marriage, Luma's flirtatious tone still made Rudy's cheeks flush. "I'll be home before you know it. Just need to finalize this trade agreement with the Zorgax Confederation." "My brilliant diplomat," Luma purred. "Don't work too hard. I need you in top form for our anniversary next week." Rudy's eyebrows shot up. "You've got something planned, don't you?" Luma's grin was positively wicked. "Let's just say I've been in touch with our old friend Zix. How do you feel about a little simulation?" Before Rudy could respond, a loud crash echoed from Luma's end, followed by twin cries of, "It wasn't me." Luma closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. "Duty calls. I love you, Rudy Hawthorne. Safe travels. Love you too, Luma. Give the kids a hug for me. As the hologram faded, Rudy leaned back in his chair, a contented smile on his face. 12 years ago, he never could have imagined this life, a family that straddled two worlds, a career as an interstellar diplomat, and a love that only grew stronger with each passing day. His gaze drifted to the window, taking in the alien skyline of the Zorgax capital. Somewhere out there, new adventures were waiting. And with Luma by his side, Rudy knew he was ready for anything the universe might throw their way. The communicator chimed again, a message from Luma. Rudy opened it to find a single line of text. P.S. Pack that blue shirt I like. You're going to need it for what I have planned. Rudy grinned, already looking forward to whatever interstellar mischief lay ahead. Some things, it seemed, never changed, and he wouldn't have it any other way. Dear listeners, thank you for joining us on this cosmic journey of love, laughter, and interstellar shenanigans. We hope you enjoyed tagging along with Rudy and Luma as they navigated the perils of simulated spaceships, alien bureaucracy, and the ultimate long-distance relationship. If you found yourself chuckling at Rudy's terrible space puns, swooning over Luma's otherworldly charms, or cheering for their love against all odds, we'd love to hear about it. Please take a moment to leave a comment letting us know what you thought of the story. And hey, if you enjoyed this tale of star-crossed, literally, lovers, why not give it a like? It helps other cosmic romantics find their way to this little corner of the literary universe. Remember, in a world of infinite possibilities, love is the greatest adventure of all. So keep your eyes on the stars, your heart open to new experiences, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find your own Luma or Rudy waiting out there in the vast expanse of the cosmos. Until next time, may your journeys be bold, your laughter be frequent, and your love be as boundless as the universe itself. Ad astra per aspera.